is Subhas Chandra Bose speaking to you from Tokyo. Countrymen and friends, in April last, you heard my voice over another radio in another part of the world. Now I am in Tokyo, and I am accepting the hospitality of the broadcasting station here in order to speak to you again. Since I spoke to you last, no important change has taken place in the general war situation. In the Western theater, the Anglo-American forces have scored a success, and the fighting in North Africa has come to an end. The Anglo-Americans have followed this up by occupying a few small barren islands in the Mediterranean. As is customary with Anglo-American propagandists, they have been rending the skies with their boasting and bragging subsequent to the small military success which they achieved. Prior to this, they had been feeling so down and out that they had badly needed some occasion for bolstering up the sinking morale of their people. If one were to listen to the broadcasts from England and America after the campaign in Tunisia, as I have been doing, one would think that the Anglo-American forces had already won the war. This type of propaganda had brought good results during the last World War, when radio broadcasting was virtually unknown. That is why the Anglo-Americans have been indulging in it again. They are, however, blissfully oblivious of the fact that the world public is not as unsophisticated today as it was in 1915 and in 1916, and that radio broadcasting has now enabled people in every corner of the globe to listen to both versions of the story on every point. Moreover, the Indian public, having been repeatedly deceived by cunning British propaganda, has now become exceedingly cautious and is not likely to be influenced at all by one-sided enemy propaganda. I have therefore no doubt in my mind that so far as my countrymen are concerned, they will never be duped by what London or New York or Boston might say. After the Anglo-American occupation of some small barren islands in the Mediterranean, like Pantelleria and Lampedusa, enemy propagandists have given the whole world the impression that the landing in and occupation of the European continent is now a question of a few days. When I was in Paris, soon after the first Anglo-American landing in French North Africa, I heard from many Parisians that Anglo-American radio stations had given them the impression that Anglo-American troops would be in Paris in a fortnight's time. Those Frenchmen who were elated over this news naturally suffered a severe disappointment when the Anglo-Americans did not appear in France again after the shameful debacle at Dieppe. I am afraid that all those people who have still been hoping for the miracle of an Anglo-American victory will have painful disappointment in store for them when they realize that the occupation of the European continent is still as remote as the occupation of the moon. Friends, you will certainly remember that when the campaign in Africa was going on, I repeatedly told you that for the ultimate outcome of the war, the African campaign did not play an important role, though it was fully utilized by the Anglo-Americans for their propagandistic purposes. You will now realize that what I then said was no exaggeration. The campaign in Africa has ended, but we have not come any nearer to the end of the war than when fighting was going on in Cyrenaica or Tripolitana or Tunisia. The fact is, as I told you before more than once, that the fate of the war depends on the situation in Europe, in Asia, and on the high seas. And so far as India is concerned, what is most important of all is the situation near India. No amount of Anglo-American propaganda can either ignore or hide the fact that after achieving brilliant victories in Hong Kong, in the Philippines, in the East Indies, in Malaya and Singapore, and in Burma, the forces of the Imperial Japanese Army now stand on the frontier of India. During the whole history of British rule in India, it had never struck one single British general that at some time in future, some enemy of Britain may appear on the eastern frontier of India. The whole attention of Britain's military strategists had therefore been concentrated on the northwestern frontier of India. And with the naval fortress of Singapore in their possession, our rulers thought that India was eternally safe in their hands. But the phenomenal advance of Generals Yamashita and Ida created history and opened the eyes of the world to the worthlessness of British strategy. Since then, General Wavell has been making feverish attempts to put up fortifications on the eastern frontier of India. But what the Indian people today are asking is this: if it took 20 years to build Singapore and only 1 week to lose it, how long will it take the ever-retreating British Commander-in-Chief or his successor to withdraw from his eastern fortifications? We have seen that during the course of the present war, the Anglo-American powers have time and again made themselves the laughing stock of the world by beginning a military campaign to the accompaniment of boastful propaganda and extravagant claims. They are now doing this in connection with their contemplated occupation of the European continent. They did it some months ago when General Wavell started operations on the Indo-Burma frontier and marched into Burma. At that time, it was advertised all over the world that the campaign for the reconquest of Burma had begun. But what face could the British Commander-in-Chief show when his troops had to run back to India, leaving all their bags and baggage behind as soon as the powerful